So that's the gist of it. That's the gist of it. That the self-interest that we're taught about in economics class that is going to lead to perfect competition is not true. Why? Because you can't regulate the monopoly. And self-interest, the main incentive of self-interest is to become a monopoly and not have competition. Because profits are greater, everything's easier, right? So that is the problem. That's the problem with that mentality of domination, of self-interested domination, competition, domination over others. So business is great, and there's a lot of great things coming out of business, especially in psychology, in thought. The whole creation mentality that we are creators, the scarcity versus abundance, the whole abundance mentality is great. The whole cooperation mentality is coming through. The whole win-win mentality is coming through in business, as opposed to religion or other type of practices. Business is on the cutting edge of thought, and that's great. So business is evolving in a great way. The only problem left is still the big corporate machines that are controlling, the big government machines, the media controlled media that's censoring a lot of things now. Information is becoming censored on different media platforms, especially on mass media, but now even internet and YouTube and a lot of things are becoming censored. And that's all from the big conglomerates that have the domination mentality. And so, but it's changing, it's getting better. And in cooperation, so the spirit of that self-interested competition, domination, leads to concentrations of power, leads to these excesses of a few people controlling the wealth of whole countries, which is not, it's not in anyone's good interest. It's not even in the people controlling in their good interest either. It's not in anyone's good interest for that to happen. And so when we switch over to the cooperation mentality, to the win-win mentality, to the creation mentality, to the not so much accumulation and domination, but more of creation, of becoming an artist of your craft, becoming in love with your craft, with what you do, whatever you do, whatever business you do, whatever endeavor you take on in life, it's being in love with it, being in love with the means of creation. And that is going to lead us to cooperation with others, to transparency. Transparency is on this side, and always hiding. Non-transparency is on the other side, right? So always transparency is important. You should have nothing to hide. Trade secrets, patents and copyrights and things like this, I don't think are to a great help. I think I've always had that feeling that the great inventors have always shared their information openly and wanted to. Many inventions have come about. There's a lot of documentaries on many inventions that come about, and the big conglomerates buy it up and keep it hidden. And of course the objective is to keep control of resources and etc. So let's share things freely. when you share things freely, things come into your life freely as well. And so in the mentality of cooperation, we will see a true free market where there's freedom to do business. Now there's no freedom to do business. And you think we've been taught that there is, that we are the freest country in the world, but it's the most regulated country. There's so many regulations to business, especially small business. Small businesses is one of the most regulated businesses, and that is not by chance. The big companies don't want to compete with small business. So there's so many regulations in every industry. Just off the top of my head, the food industry is just so regulated. The big companies want us buying their food, their processed food, their 2-year shelf life food, and they want to make it impossible for the small guy to go out and sell oranges in his front yard. I've seen many cases where people have orange trees in their backyard, 2 or 3 orange trees, 2 or 3 lemon trees, and they can't sell oranges in their front yard. It's against the law. And the IRS comes and the local sheriff comes and you can't do it. It's just amazing to me how the food industry is so controlled, and everything else as well. I mean, but this is just one out of so many. Healthcare, natural resources, transportation. There's just so many. Transportation, we've actually seen great things, but there's just so many regulations. Why don't we live in a truly free society where you can truly just do what you want to do without getting permits, without getting licenses, without getting this, without getting that, without having to pay so much taxes, and the time spent in the tax code is just ridiculous, and city codes and state codes and national codes, and it's just very difficult for a small business to survive. It's not impossible, but why don't we lessen all of these regulations? Why not? Why not make it a freer society? And the only answer that always comes about is for your safety. Oh, we're trying to protect you. We're trying to protect the consumer. Why can't I open a restaurant in my house and have people in my living room and eat food? Why can't I do that? Oh, you have to have a commercial kitchen. You have to have this. We have to have the government, safety, food, whatever, come in and inspect your house. I mean, really? I mean, I trust my neighbor who I know, or a friend of a neighbor, who I would be glad to go to her house and eat a plate of food and pay $8 than to buy some. You think I trust that person more, or do I trust someone in a laboratory making a concoction of chemicals for us that is approved by the FDA that shouldn't be? Who do I trust more, really? I mean, so it's just ridiculous, the amount of the non-freedom that exists in this country is just amazing. We just don't realize it. We're brainwashed to believe that we do live in a free society, but it can be so much more freer. And so everything that has to do with protection a lot of times is a big business tactic to keep small business regulated. So anyway, but business is a great thing. Business is a beautiful thing. Business is, I've never had my own business. I'm always in like an employee type, because that's just the way I have always been. I'm not really interested in that. I was always interested in exploring spiritual themes and things like that. So I just kind of became an employee and went through the motions 40 hours, and while I was thinking about all of these things, right? More of a thinker, right? But business is a great thing. So let's always stand for business. And the best way to stand for business is to allow for freedom. Less regulations, less laws, less things, because the market will regulate itself. If my neighbor is opening a restaurant and people start getting sick from her food or whatever, people are going to stop going. That's just market. That's how the free market works. The word is spread and people know what happens. But we don't need some government agency regulating us to protect us. We can protect ourselves. The market protects itself. And so that is just my 2 cents on business and on how the two forces are involved in business. So let's be transparent. Let's be creative. Let's love our craft. And don't be afraid to share what you know with others, competitors. My boss is he's an amazing guy. He does things like that. We have competitors that he just gives all of his trade secrets to, and they grow and they thrive. But actually it works to our advantage because they build a level of trust that they start giving us business in other areas, and it's a win-win for everyone. So he's been a great example to me of how this actually works in action, because I knew about this, but to actually see it happen in action is amazing. So that's all for today, guys. Catch you later.